Houndsman XP fans, you've been asking for an episode about beagles and hunting rabbits and hares with beagles, and I traveled to northern Michigan to the UP up north and hunted with the man, the myth, the legend, the Ayatollah of rock and rolla, Allen Gingerich. We spent 2 days in the UP hunting hares, and I can see why you guys wanted an episode about this. I probably haven't been on a hound adventure where I was so relaxed and had such a good time in a long, long time. Allen is a great host, nothing fancy, but we had campfires, we had all the fixins, hot dogs, and some action-packed beagle races on snowshoe hare. It was a great time. You're going to hear about Allen's journey in beagles and his passion for chasing hares with these beagle hounds. So I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. It's just a fun conversation with a great guy, and I really enjoyed my time with Allen, and I think you'll enjoy it too. We really do appreciate you. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed making it and bringing it to you at Houndsman XP.
Man, isn't this just pretty right through here? I love this.
This is, yeah. First time I've ever been up here to the Upper Peninsula. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive, and we're getting ready. We're coming back from a couple days of hare hunting with your beagles, and
yeah, good couple days too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Oh, you gotta pay the admission fee before you go across the bridge on this side.
Yep, they get you on the northern side.
Oh, okay. Here's the admission fee right here.
Perfect.
I thought they only charged you when you came up north, when you came to the UP, and then they were glad to see you go.
They get you both ways.
I got a piece of smoked fish caught between my teeth.
Yeah, so do I, actually. I was thinking I needed a toothpick here. We got in the wrong one. That's my buddy over there on that one.
Oh, yeah?
No, that's not him either. It's a native guy.
Yeah.
Always a happy guy. How are you, ma'am? Thank you. You too.
You're going to drag race the E450 right here.
Perfect.
You got him.
We got
His
him.
hood's up. He probably doesn't even realize it. His hood's like on safety latch right there. Yep. So we're getting – what's the name of this bridge? Is this the Mackinac?
This is the Mackinac Bridge, yep.
Going across the river, and unfortunately we're headed south instead of headed north.
Well, that's true. At least it's not as windy as it was Thursday or Wednesday morning when we came
up here.
Oh, my gosh.
So how long did we sit and wait to get across the bridge because of the wind?
We got here at I think it was around 6:30 when we got on the south end of it, and we finally did cross at right at 11:30 noon.
Yeah,
I think, something like that on that day. Yeah, we sat around for a little while, went and ate some breakfast, and it still wasn't open. So we turned around, went back to Gaylord, went to Jay's Sporting Goods, loafed around there, ate some more donuts.
I didn't need that donut, by the way.
I didn't either.
It was like a chocolate Long John with peanut butter filling. You got to try that one next time.
That was the heaviest Long John I have ever ate in my life. That thing had to weigh at least a pound.
Yeah. And then we just kind of had to make ourselves go walk and stuff once we get up here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no escorts today going back. Had an escort bringing us across Wednesday.
Yeah.
What were the winds on Wednesday? You remember what they said?
Well, the internet, the Michigan DOT site showed, what did it say, 60 miles an hour on the bridge surface?
I think that's right, something like that.
Yeah, 60 miles an hour, but it was like 45 to 50 miles an hour sustained with 70-mile-an-hour gusts.
Yeah, it was windy, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yep, and I'll tell you what, when we came across the lake Wednesday, it was heavy seas.
It really was.
It was.
It was heavy seas. We had a due west wind coming. And so we're driving south now, and I'm looking out to the west, and I don't even know where the other shore is.
Yeah, can't see it from that side.
No,
over
no.
here on the east, I can see some. Well, there's a part of it that opens up where you can't see anything, but I can see part of the. Well, that's not the Mackinac Island. The Mackinac Island sits behind us there a little bit. You can see some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a place you got to take your wife to sometime. I bet she'd like that.
She is really looking forward to that. I've never been. This is my first trip to the UP.
Yeah. What'd you think of it?
I was really impressed. I was impressed with the quality of the hunting, and how long you been coming up here?
A lot of years. A lot of years. Yeah.
You don't want to date yourself.
No, I'm not going to do that. But I'm an older guy, and I've been coming up.
Well, then what does that make me?
Well, it makes you just like me. I figured out you're the same age as I am. I may have a couple months on you, actually.
Yeah.
But no, I've been coming up here regularly since I was about 20 years old.
Man, so 30 years.
Okay.
I just let the cat out of the bag.
You did.
31 years to be exact next month, right?
Actually, 32 years.
Next month?
Let's not shortcut it since we're exposing it anyways. Yeah. And you know what? This is the first time that I have ever been that we couldn't cross the bridge because of wind. First time I've ever seen that happen.
Remember that guy we met down here at the restaurant yesterday, and he's like, oh, yeah, I've been through this several times.
Yeah.
I've been coming up here for 40 years.
Yeah.
And then he's like, this is the second time it happened. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I've been through this several times. It happened one other time.
Yeah.
That's not several.
Yeah.
I can tell you, Alan, that the last couple days have been it beyond my expectations. I mean, I was excited about coming up and going to the UP and chasing hares, snowshoe hare with you and your beagles. I've heard you talk about it for years, and I've always thought, man, that'd be cool to do. That'd be so much fun. It'd be different, and it didn't disappoint. So I can't tell you how happy I am and grateful that you invited me to come up and tag along for a couple days.
Yeah, well, for sure. I appreciated that you could make it work to make the trip up here with me. I've come up here quite a bit just by myself, and with other folks too, my brothers and all that, and it's always good to have somebody with you, really. I enjoy just coming up here and running dogs, and it's just a good place to get some miles on your dogs. And right now I got these 2 young males. I'm trying to get a lot of time on them, and it's just it's a 5.5 hour trip from my house, so I love coming up here. And just even if it's just for like this trip, just a day and a half, basically, we're going to make it 2 days. And Wednesday it got so windy and everything, we didn't get the dogs loose till about about 1 o'clock maybe.
Yeah.
And
we still put 12 miles, 13 miles on those little beagles.
Yeah, we did. And but yeah, it was a good time. That hunt mostly on the Hiawatha National Forest there, and it's not too far. 20-25 minutes you can be in the forest, across the bridge there. But yeah, it's huge, a vast forest there. I looked it up. I didn't know exactly how many acres it was till today. I looked it up, but it's 870,000 acres. That's
that's impressive.
Acres. Yeah. What did it say? 575 miles of streams that dump into the Great Lakes around here.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is.
It's amazing. And the thing that surprised me was the lack of traffic. We're in the fall, and being in the forest for a day and a half or 2 days or whatever, we see 4 vehicles.
Maybe, yeah.
4 vehicles pass us.
Yeah.
And what a gym.
Yeah.
It's a gym.
Yeah. You see why I like going up there?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's your happy place.
It is my happy place. Sure is. like I said, all good things must come to an end, but get back home and get to work again, I guess. But no, I really enjoyed the last couple of days. Always do. Doesn't matter. Wednesday I thought the running just wasn't that great. It just seemed like the conditions weren't as good. But then this morning we turned loose. It took a little while to get on a hare. That was a little uncommon. It usually doesn't take that long to get one jump, but it took a little while. But when they did, they really ran good from the start. And most of the day it's been good,
Yep.
I got some tired beagles. They're all snoring in the box right now.
They put 15, 16 miles on today?
Yeah, they averaged about 15 miles we put on them today. So.
There's just something about a beagle.
That was up to what time we quit? About 2 o'clock, 1:30, I guess, 2 o'clock, something like that.
Yep.
A little sooner than I thought, but after you knocked that last hare down, I saw, boy, these young dogs are looking a little tired.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I made 2 amazing shots.
You did. I was impressed. You 2 for 2, 2 for 2, man. I did. Hey, I got a couple of hares too, and
you missed one.
There's one that got away. There's one that got away from me.
He was just hopping like down the road towards you and looking at you and waving at you, and you just. No, I didn't see it. What happened?
Well, I'm not going to tell you how close he was. He was well within shooting range. I just let him a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Let him a little too much. Wouldn't be the first time. Won't be the last.
Well,
what'd you think of that color change? So you saw them. They're about, I'd say, about 3/4 white right now.
Yeah. I mean, when I just got back from Idaho and we saw a lot of snowshoe hare out west and stuff like that, and they were all still brown. And so right now they're in that transition stage of going from brown to white, which is absolutely amazing that a hare adapts to its environment like that. There isn't any snow here yet. It's still brown.
Yeah.
But
and that's actually unusual for this time of the year. Oftentimes this time of the year we come up here, there's usually snow here. So
yeah. And the hare know that, and they're already starting to change colors. It's a good thing there isn't snow. They'd have stuck out like cottontails on the snow.
They kind of would have.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. So a lot of white on their feet and up on their bellies, and really starting to see that, and on their face starting to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
So, yeah, last evening, late in the afternoon, the dogs got back in there a little bit and didn't seem like they were coming out. So we kind of parted ways. I kind of went one way, hoping we could maybe catch up with the hare on me covering the one end, and you chose to dig into the forest.
No, it was like it was like, hey, why don't you, if you want to walk back in there and try to cut that off, we can catch these dogs. And it was, as soon as I was not even 30 yards in there, I was thinking, this is the initiation to the UP. This is okay. We got him to go. So I don't know how many probably a half mile through that stuff, and there were as many trees on the ground laying parallel to the ground as there were standing up, and thick, and you're out there walking around on the trail, and I know what you were thinking. It's like, yep, we got him to go. That happened to me one other time too, bear hunting in North Carolina, and Tracy Jones like, oh yeah, you just go up around that side there and then come down that draw down that creek and see if you can strike a track. Well, he sent me into Laurel, and he was laughing when I got back.
Yeah, well, I did walk up the trail a little ways, and then I did cut back in about 400 or 500 yards, and dogs kind of cut back to circled back around to my left, and got back out close to the trail, so I didn't waste a whole lot of time. I hit it back again.
Yeah, I was back
on the trail, and
I was back in there, and it was getting dark, and I was thinking, the last place I want to be is back here when it gets dark. So I saw you on the Garmin and saw you bringing dog. I saw everything bunched up and moving down that trail, and I thought, man, it's time for me to go.
Yeah, well, I had pulled my radio out to give you a buzz, and the batteries were pretty much dead. I couldn't get a hold of you or whatever.
Yeah, you gave me a dead radio.
Yeah, well, I thought you'd probably see on your Garmin. You can see where I'm at, and I got all the dogs. But, yeah, last week I was just up here a week ago, and I kind of got caught with my 2 young dogs out way after dark, and I couldn't get a hold of them. They were way back in there kind of like this, and they just wouldn't cross the road anywhere. Got parallel, just running parallel, and long story short, I had one lay down on me. I had him down for about 15 hours, that youngest dog I got.
Which one?
Here. Homer. Homer, yeah. He Henry I caught him about 10 o'clock. I got a hold of him, and finally, got him out to the truck, and I just could not get the other one out. He kept picking around back there in that swamp, and finally looked on was checking my Garmin the whole time, and showed that he was just not going anywhere. And I thought, man, he had to lay down. That was a long day for him, and sure enough, finally got in there, navigated around the swamp. My brother was up there, and him and I got back in there, and sure enough, he was bedded down. I carried him all the way out, but that was poor little guy. He had quite an experience last week. Got into a porcupine thing those young dogs go through sometimes,
right.
And still had a couple quills in him. I saw he had one under his skin still that morning, and I couldn't get that one out, but he seemed like he was fine. But yeah, so he had a long day, and he just flat laid down on me. But I really like what I'm seeing out of those 2 young males, man. It's been worth. This is my 5th or 6th trip up here since middle of August, since I started bringing those 2 young dogs up here. But I've put a lot of miles on them, and it's showing. So it's what you got to do sometimes.
The beagle is a small hound with a huge heart. I remember being a kid, and my brother was the one that came up. He ended up getting the first beagle. And
try some of this jerky here. You like jerky?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. You want me to chew and eating the mic and stuff? I'm going to just tear off a little piece. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
That's like a seasoned beef chunk right there.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember those days of hunting with those beagles, and that you brought back a lot of memories. I'm going to eat some more jerky. Today for me, or the last couple days. And the heart of the beagle is just unbelievable. Those dogs, they came out today and they were dead tired, but they earned it. They really did.
Yeah, they worked pretty good today. Had some very good running.
So tell me what got you into beagles. How do you end up? Because everybody knows you as the coonhound guy. Well, a lot of our audience does through coonhounds and things like that. The beagle community knows you from that side of it. But what got you into beagles?
We had beagles when we were kids at home, so we started hunting them back home on the farm already. I don't know, 12, 13 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
We started, got our first beagles. And
what's the earliest, 12 or 13, that'd be the earliest age you remember?
Well, that we had our own dogs, but before that we'd go running with, with other guys that had beagles and stuff like that too. And Dad used to have a beagle when we were really young. Mm-hmm. So, and Dad ran a little bit, but, so yeah, young kids. Grandpa always had beagles and coonhounds and all that stuff, so sometimes we went with him, and our uncles, a lot of them ran beagle dogs. And
yeah,
just loved it. And this, I grew up in northern Michigan, northern part in the lower still, but a little town called Mayo.
We're not too far away from there now.
No, we're not. No, we're going to come up on Gaylord here after a little while, and then next big town we'll come to is Grayling. And then where I grew up sits just a little bit northeast of Grayling, actually, is where Mayo is on the Osable River. But right there we had both cottontails and hare. And we loved getting on those hare. That's just something exciting about running a hare.
Yeah.
They'll almost cut out of hearing. Now, today there was hardly any times, actually all weekend really, that the dogs really got out of hearing. There were some times they got close to it,
Yeah.
But you could hear them really for 800-900 yards. You could still hear them pretty good in the last couple days.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that makes a difference, if you got snow on the trees and things like that, that really makes a difference pretty quick. You're not going to hear them that far. But yeah, it's just something exciting about hare hunting. Always loved it and still do.
Yeah, it's cottontail hunting is got its own charm to it, and but the circles that these hares make is and the ability of these beagles and these hounds to sort that out, because we looked at some screens on the Garmin's. I mean, they scribbled a dot in there, and yet they brought that hare around multiple times. We saw, how many times did we see that hare cut across the road this morning?
Four times. Four times. First time. I think you nailed him. No, I got him. I got the first one, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. I think it was the fourth time he crossed the road.
Yep. But
yeah, he even tried a little trick on the dogs where come out in the middle of the road. That one time went up the road, up the middle of the dirt road.
Yeah.
But they bobbled a little bit, but they got him figured out.
Right. So what is about the beagle that you like so much?
Hey, you know what? A lot of just what you said. They got a lot of heart, and man, it's just amazing how long and how many miles those dogs can put on in a day, especially if they're in shape. Obviously you saw this just in the last couple of days. You got to have a dog in shape.
Right.
If you don't have a dog in shape, they're just not going to last too long on, especially running all day. Now my dogs right now are in pretty decent shape, but when we picked them up after we got that last hare, you could see, especially those two young dogs. I picked up that one male that before they got on that last one. He was limping a little bit. He's just tired,
right.
Just tired. But they would have went the rest of the day, and that's just like that, From there on is just heart and drive and desire, But
it's amazing,
And
they're doing it.
We decided just to pick them up there and call it a good day,
Yeah, they're doing it on 7-inch legs.
Yeah,
They make up for it with that heart and that drive and that desire. I think it's almost like you get inspired by watching a beagle. You get inspired. It's like, can I get up and walk back this trail or up this? And you see what that beagle has done all day, and it inspires you to get back into it. I can't sit here any longer. But I like the way you hunt. I really like. And we ate good, and we had fires.
Yeah, first thing this morning, turning the dogs loose, got us a little fire started there, and yeah, I love that. All that just adds to it for me.
Listening to the hounds run, and they bring it. I know there were times we talked about recording a podcast. I didn't bring the extension cord setup that I like to use. But how cool would it have been to be sitting by that fire, because those beagles were 20 yards maybe from us, 15 yards from us, just screaming.
Yeah, they run through. How many times did they come through there today?
Bunch.
Lots.
Yeah. A bunch. And
we could have probably heard them easily.
Through these mics, even they're directional. But so what do you look for in a beagle when you've had, how many beagles do you think you've had in your lifetime?
Oh, gosh, it's hard to tell, Chris. It's, I don't know, probably 20, 30, 40 of them over, different ones, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Right now I've got 4 of them that I keep at the house. I had half a dozen until a couple of weeks ago. I got rid of 2 of them, but
it's a good thing you got rid of them before I came to hunt with you.
You might have went home with them.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the one I had that I got rid of, she was just a little bit slower than the rest of my dogs and just didn't really fit into my pack, So it's just you need to when you rabbit hunt, you want the beagles to pack up, so it's kind of important that you have your pack is kind of similar as far as foot speed. You'll get some, slower that are just naturally slower, and some that have a little more foot, I wouldn't call mine, super fast or anything like that, but they're, a medium, good medium, or a little better than medium speed, probably for the most part, I guess is what most people would call them, but they do a pretty fair job.
I think
I'm just tickled the way my 2 young males have come along. I started them this last spring, just got them started on cottontail, and then honestly, they got laid up after about April. They got laid up till first trip up here in August, but just from August till now, 5-6 trips now up here to the UP. Man, they've come a long way. But that's just goes to show what you can get done. Put the time in on them up here, and
right.
I love it. They're coming along nicely.
So, I think the farthest I saw your pack behind a hare this last couple days is probably 40 yards behind, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Today there was a couple times I was surprised they were as close to him as
every
as
one of them.
Yeah,
I was surprised how many we shoot? 5?
4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5 hare and every one of them.
And we weren't trying to kill a bunch of them or
No.
anything like that. We could have, if we'd have really set up to try to shoot more, we could have certainly done. I would certainly hope so, but that wasn't really our game plan, I guess.
No.
I did want to get a couple down to these young dogs today, though, or this week.
Yeah, but the pack was together. They worked together well. Seemed like they were putting good pressure on the hare without, just blowing it up. Seems like if in not hare hunting, but other, you bear hunt or you lion hunt, or if you've got that dog that doesn't stick together, he can blow that up. And you talked about blowing up races and different things, but your pack seems to be pretty close. When that hare would come across the road, they would be your pack was pretty close together.
Yeah,
they were like within, I would say, 20 feet. A circumference of 20 feet. They're working together.
You mean as far as the pack goes?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, most of the time probably less than that. It kind of depends. It just depends on what was happening when we did actually see him. But usually when the whole pack's on line, you can. I'm not going to say you can throw a blanket over them, but
it was pretty close.
Yeah, that's what you want to look for.
10
close. Yeah,
within 10 feet of each other, and they're just like.
Seems like every time every time you see him cross the road or something where we could see him, they were.
Can you hare hunt with one dog, with one beagle?
Sure, absolutely. And you know what? I don't mind doing that. And matter of fact, I like doing that. I like to solo a dog on a hare.
Yeah.
And I've done these. I've had these young males already here in the last several trips. I didn't do it this week here, but they're doing a fine job. But I love doing that with a young dog like that. They get going. They just let them build that confidence up. That's a big thing. Is let them get that confidence up. So yeah, I absolutely love to solo.
What do you think? It builds the confidence. What else does it do for a young dog like that to solo them?
Well, they have to do everything. They have to do everything on their own. Let them figure things out, and you'll see. They'll run into one of the things you get up in here that you saw. We could see it on our Garmins when they got into some swampy areas and stuff, and that's where they break down a little bit sometimes. But just
the bald eagle sitting up on that limb
right there. Look at that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Last week it was pretty nice when we were up here and saw several of them flying around. That's pretty neat.
But soloing a dog, soloing a young hound by himself, what are you trying to accomplish by doing that?
Number one, give them the confidence, and they have to do it on their own, and it just builds a lot of confidence. That's probably the number one thing. And then you can also just really gauge where they're at, really can, and the confidence, and that's basically the number one thing. And I really feel like that helps. You don't want to. I say, hey, I'm not an expert here on training or anything like that. Never never claimed to be, but that's just been my experience. You know, I want to do a fair amount of soloing. You know, and you want them to pack too. You can overdo soloing to almost to the point where they might get a little too independent. And
I was going to bring it back to that.
Yeah, you know, but I just I've always felt that way. There's you need to solo them some.
So you solo them,
and especially young dogs.
Yeah.
When when you're in the training portion.
So you're looking for every beagle in your pack to be a leader.
Well, to be a contributor.
Contributor?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't necessarily need. I'm just not big on a dog that just needs to fight for the front end.
Okay.
Things like that, you know, and obviously it depends on the dog, you know, but I like a dog that packs up nicely, and usually, you know, that's it just and I've had dogs that had to have that front end, but I am what I look for is a dog that will contribute, you know, not just always a follower, but they got to contribute, you know. That's what makes a good pack. If you have dogs that all contribute in some form, and and I think, you know what, we had I think you probably saw that here in the last couple of days. Every one of them, you know, you saw some picking up some nice checks, you know,
yeah.
and it wasn't always just the older dogs, you know. Some of the young dogs did a nice job too with that.
How old is Fiddle, your female?
She is, I think she's right at 5.
5 years old?
Yep, 5 years old. And we had that other male, Bo, which I brought him along. He actually belongs to a buddy of mine back home, and he's a pretty solid hound. He is I want to say he's going to be a coming 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember we had him up here when he was 14 months old, and he reminds me a lot of my young male, about the same age when we had him up here.
Henry or Homer?
Homer.
Yeah.
And doing a nice job, you know, at that age already, contributing here, and he was really learning. The next year, bring him up here, and man, just a big difference from that first year to the second year. And that's what that's what you look for. And just like that Bow dog, my buddies, he's turned out to be a nice, solid hound, you know. And I think he's a coming 3-year-old now, and he's just this year again, he's just super solid.
Yeah, yeah. So too much soloing. You say they're always fighting for the front. What happens when you get one dog, or you get let's say you got multiple dogs that are trying to fight for the front? What kind of problems does that?
Oftentimes, that will end up in too many messes and losing the track, running off the front or running off the end of tracks and things like that. Can mess it up. You're talking about soloing a dog. That doesn't, too much soloing isn't necessarily going to make a dog fight for the front. I don't feel like it's just a matter of giving them the confidence they need to be a contributor within the pack more than anything, I guess.
So when you're hunting a young beagle and you're soloing them and you're trying to develop those skills, you know, at what point do you decide, hey, that's enough soloing, let's put them back in the pack and run them with?
Really depends on the dog, each individual dog.
What are you looking for, though?
As far as how much I solo them?
Yeah, when do you
the confidence they have, and how much the confidence that they have gained from it, and then I guess how much they contribute within the pack, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when you're running hares, tell me the difference. You've talked about, over the last couple of days, we've talked about, you know, a cottontail dog or a hare dog or a good dog that can do either one. You know, tell me what it is that makes a good hare dog. Because you've talked about that. He's a dynamite hare dog. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, Chris. You know, the majority of what we run is obviously on cottontail, and I think it's probably like I think what we talked about a little bit is some of the coon hunters or whatever have a kind of a mediocre, less than mediocre dog. They think, okay, he's going to be just fine as a bear dog. Well, I think the bear hunters will tell you no way.
Right.
Well, I think it's the same way here a little bit, but I've seen dogs on cottontail that are excellent on cottontail, and you put them on Hare and they're just kind of average. But I've seen other dogs that are decent cottontail dogs that just you put them on Hare that will just excel. And I can't really point a finger. I don't know what it is, but I've certainly seen that. And there's I don't know. I think a lot of times one of the things that you see a little bit different on Hare sometimes I think is dogs that can run with their heads up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Some dogs just seem to be able to do that better than others, but I've seen there's a friend of mine that has one, and he's and I'll use him as an example. He is a better than average hound on cottontail. Very nice dog, very nice hound. Bring him up here, and we've had him up here the last 3 or 4 years, and that dog just excels. And now the last year, he's getting older now or whatever, but he's just a dominant Hare dog.
So is it the difference between the way the cottontail covers ground and the Hare covers ground?
I don't know. I don't know that I can really answer that. Really, I can throw something out there, but it's
Let me ask you this. Yeah. Okay, so say you're hunting in an area that has both Hare and cottontail.
Yeah.
Can you tell the difference on what your dogs are running based on how they're moving?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. A lot of times a cottontail is just going to basically circle, and the circle's not going to be more than about 300-400 yards probably, maybe at most, whereas a Hare, he's going to cut out a lot more and maybe do some figure 8 type stuff, maybe loop around a little bit, pigtail around, I call it,
We saw that.
And, some things like that, and, it's nothing for them to take them, 800-900 yards one way.
Yeah.
And they just run differently.
Yeah.
Whereas a cottontail most of the time is pretty much going to circle around, and a Hare will circle to an extent, sometimes a little bit, and they're kind of unpredictable, really, as far as what their route's going to be. Where I think a cottontail is a little bit more predictable, maybe. But
well, this was my first time ever hunting Hare, and I've hunted cottontails with beagles before, and a cottontail just you can kind of gauge where they're going to come out and know where it's going to happen.
Yeah.
How many times just today, we're sitting there at the fire and it's like, oh, it's coming close. We ought to go ahead and knock this one down. And I jump up and grab my shotgun. I walked out there, set up, and boom, he didn't come out, and he's already turned and headed back in.
Yeah. No, that happens quite a bit.
It was a whole new experience for me, and it was a good experience. It was exciting. So, there's a whole different aspect of beagles and Hare hunting and cottontail hunting, but you work it with a lot of UKC beagle trials, and in your job, and just lay that format out for us a little bit about beagle trials and how there's a huge difference in coonhound trials, but describe a beagle trial.
Yeah, we have the one format that's called the hunting beagle format, and that is where you draw dogs out in a group or a cast of 4 dogs in a cast, and then there's a point system set up for it, for the order that the dogs all strike in. The handlers call their dogs struck just like they do in the coonhound events. And then there's points for that, and then basically it's kind of simulated after a real hunt or whatever. You kind of stay where the dogs jump the rabbit. You stay there, and you hope they circle it back around to you. That's what they should do, circle it back around to you. And then when you see the rabbit, you call a line. You mark a line. Let's say it runs by this stump or whatever. You call a line. Then you score the dogs 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's a point system for scoring lines. So once they bring it back to the line after they score the line is when you can secure their strike points plus. But in between all that, you have what we call a check and a progress clock. So after the dogs shut up for X amount of time, they all shut up. We call a check. So they go into a check, and then there's merit points for the dog that picks up the recovery, and results in the track going back to a runnable state again. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the scoring. And then there's also the progress clock. Let's say they don't recover it, and after like 3 minutes, the track is called dead. They just haven't progressed it, whether they've shut up completely or just simply have not progressed it. Then they call time after that, handle the dogs. Then it's a matter of trying to determine why the track ended. If it's just they just made a simple lose, and in that case, the dogs are going to get demerited for that. But sometimes you might have determined that they ended up in a hole or a place of refuge or whatever, and of course they don't get demerited for that. So that's the one format, and then it's just as simple as, at the end of either a 60 or a 90-minute hunt, dog with the best score is going to be your winner. And
so a dog gets scored on strike points. Which one gets out there and gets a rabbit up or a track up and moving? Mm-hmm. And then basically which one is crossing the line that you put out there.
Yep, line points.
All right, so that brings me back.
And recovery points. Those three things, basically.
Recovery points.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's a line point worth? First line.
First line is 100. Second is 85, 70, and 55.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then strike points are 100, 75, 50, and 25.
What about recovery points?
Recovery points is 20 points. 20 plus points. Yep.
Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my brain around this, and I'm going back to that solo and a dog deal, because if I'm going to compete, I obviously want a dog that gets gone, gets out there, gets struck, and carries a line, because that could potentially be 200 points, right? If he's first and first.
Yep, exactly.
And then, but if he's too fast, do you get minus points?
If he's too fast, I don't know if you can be too fast necessarily. They just need to have the line points. Purpose for the line point stuff is for two things. Obviously, they get their strike points secured, but more importantly is to gauge the dog on control, what we call control. They need to be close enough to the line, and they need to have respect for that line. A dog that's just going to run too loose or have no regard for the line, maybe, swinging way off the line, that dog's not going to get scored.
Okay.
So you have to in the competition, you have to have a dog that has some line control, or otherwise you're not going to get those line points. And
because you could potentially, if you've got a slower beagle and they're really good at picking up loses, but they're only getting 20 points for picking that up. They'd have to do that 5 times.
Yeah,
to make up that first line score.
Well, it is, it is. But if you don't need, I know a lot of guys will, think this. They got to have this race to get that first line. Just really focused on having that front end dog. And I'm telling you, you don't always need that front end dog or the dog that all this foot. I think there's, if you have a dog that has good line control, and has decent feet or decent foot, they can't be just too dang slow. Can't keep up with a pack or anything like that. But you don't always have to be that first or second dog. But I tell you, if you have a dog that runs clean on the line, they're if you have that front end dog is going to miss that line or whatever, that's second, third slotted dog. If they can come through that line, there's they can still compete.
Yeah.
You don't just need a front end dog to win trials.
Yeah.
And another thing is, those you'd be surprised how many times those checkpoints or recovery points come into play.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. Yeah. And you need that type of dog. If you have one that they need to be clean enough to. If you don't have a check dog or a dog that can keep a rabbit going, you're not going to have any points to score at the end of the day. Which kind of simulates the whole thing with hunting. If they can't bring it around to the gun, why? You're not going to have much of a rabbit hunt.
Well, I'll give you an example. I said my brother, he was the one that got the first beagle. And Sally was more of a consistent, stay on the track, bring the rabbit around to the gun dog.
Yeah.
Well, I found a little beagle. His name was Barney, and Barney was fast. Man, when the first time I cut him loose, it's like, wow. You know, I'm gonna. Even then, at 15, 16 years old, you're competing with your brother's dog, and Barney was fast, and it was cool because you turn Barney loose by himself, and he would streak around there and bring a rabbit around, but he was so fast that a lot of times he wasn't good at picking up loses. You know, he was not good about coming back in those check times and picking up his loses. And here would come Sally. You know, she'd come up through there. She'd be 30 seconds behind him. She'd sort it out, pick it up, and bring it on around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is. So yeah, Barney was the fast dog. He was a little spun out and wigged out, and he run like a wild man, but he wasn't good about picking up those loses.
Yeah. Well, there's a good example probably of maybe that little bit slower dog, but clean up some of the messes they leave.
She did.
And,
She would clean up the messes. She would clean up the messes.
Yeah, you know, you're talking about soloing a dog. You know, at one time I had this one dog he was one of the toughest rabbit hounds we had. I mean, he was a nice hound. You know, this was back in the day before all the telemetry systems and all the training systems that we now have. But man, that was still one of the nicest rabbit hounds we had. But he had one major fault, and that was running fast game, run deer. I mean, he would leave a rabbit track to run a dang deer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it happened so many times. But you know, we tried to break this dog, and he's just one of those that we just couldn't get broke off a deer. But he's one of those, you know, back in those days, you just say, well, doggone, that's going to be the end of the day for us. But leave your jacket laying out, go out 5-6 hours later, and never failed. He was always laying right there.
Yeah.
You know, that's the first, or the only dog, and we've done it with other dogs too, but that was it. That happened a lot with that dog. But finally, you know, it just got old. And I tell you, we've had him up north too, and that didn't work. You know, that's another thing with, you know, if you're going to go run Hare, or any, you know, even cottontail, doesn't really matter. But if you don't have broke dogs in there, a dog that isn't broke can just ruin your day in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that you want to work on your young dogs with, you know, and you want to, at some point, you need to expose them to that, you know, get that, get any such problems worked out. Otherwise, you know, just like a couple days we've had here, it can just ruin those days in a hurry. You know,
we didn't have any of that, but
no, and not to say, hey, I'm telling you, just a month ago I was up here, and that young dog I got here, he took off on a deer, and didn't take him very long, take him a couple miles, you know. But so I gotta watch that a little bit and keep working on him, you know. But
so a beagle being primarily focused on being track minded, you know, that's their job, is to run a track.
Mm-hmm.
How hard is it to break your beagles off of deer and other fast game and things that? How hard is that to do?
You know what? I've not really ever found it to be very tough with the training systems we have and everything. If you, I'm not a guy that is going to be quick on the trigger, for one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a big on that. But I am more into kind of exposing them to it and knowing exactly what I'm basically setting them up. You know, if I have one that's going to be a problem, it's not going to take me too long till I'm going to set that dog up and know exactly what is there, that he is actually running a deer, and try to get that broke. But to answer your question, I've never really had a dog since we've had this that couldn't eventually be broke. Mm-hmm. I've had some that were a lot harder to break than others, you know, but for the most part, I haven't found it to be too hard.
So
probably there's a difference. You know, there's one thing there where you can break them to the point where they're not going to run one if they come across it on their own. But there's another thing to be if they're influenced. You know, if the rest of the pack or another dog's going to run one, there's your second test on your dog, whether you've got him broke or not.
Right. So how do you go about breaking a young beagle? I can't believe the number of side-by-sides and stuff moving north to the UP here.
Yeah, deer season's
on 75
here. Yep, deer season's opening up Sunday, I believe. So yeah.
So
north.
how do you set them up? What does Allen Gingerich do to break his young dogs to ensure that when they open their mouth they're on a hare?
I'm going to take them out, set them up by setting them up. I'm going to go out, drive around till I find a deer, and put them right on it. Not put them right on it necessarily. I'm not going to carry them out there and put it on it, but I'm going to turn them loose, make sure we go across, or he goes across his track. I'm going to set it up to where he goes across the track, and as soon as he hits that thing, I'm going to start working on him a little bit. It's going to be light to begin with, probably, and whatever it takes to I think it's important to me. I don't want that dog to ever know, and they're all the pros are going to tell you, how it's supposed to work, and I want him to think that deer is what's hurting him, and he doesn't want anything to do with that track. But it really, again, it depends on the dog, and I'm going to give him as much as I need to let him know this is nothing he wants to mess with.
Right.
And that's going to depend on the dog. Some it's going to take a little bit more. I'm going to have to hit him a little bit harder, than others, but for the most part, I've never really had a big problem with getting a dog broke. I think it's important to just simply set them up. Too many times I've seen it, and I'll tell you one thing, Chris, is if you're up here hare hunting, if you've not hare hunted much, and we bring guys up here that haven't, they're used to running cottontails or whatever, they get on a hare, and especially if their dog's running by themselves or maybe soloing a dog, you question it right away. You think, man, is he running fast game here or not? Because that's one of the differences you saw this weekend. It doesn't take long for him to go 800 yards.
I know. It was amazing how fast they can cover ground, the way that hare buzzes out there and just covers the ground in front of them.
Yeah, so when somebody hasn't run hare much or whatever, dogs get on a hare, you know how some guys are a little trigger happy with that Tritronics or what have you, and that's just never good.
What about coyotes and fox?
Much
problem?
Never have really. Not really with beagles that I know. Right here's that Jay's where we were the other day. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty nice store, isn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Never really had many problems with it. Mostly, with as far as beagles go, is usually deer, if anything. Yeah. For the most part. There's some other game like turkeys and pheasants and things like that. Birds, they'll run then too.
Will they?
Oh yeah. They will. Yeah. Yeah.
That might not be a big deal. Pheasants.
Yeah.
But no, the one thing that I noticed about hunting with you is the way you handle your dogs. It was just, I really liked the way you gave them encouragement. You talked to them. It was, you talked about your buddy that talks to them like they're kids and stuff, but you kind of do too.
Well, not like he does.
Yeah.
but no, I like the part of building that relationship with the dog.
I never saw any frustration. I never saw any, anything that looked like, you weren't breaking off the limb to straighten out some problems. It was not that there weren't any problems, but I just don't. I saw the way you interacted with your hounds, and it was kind of neat. It was pretty refreshing. There wasn't any frustration. It was just like, hey, they're just dogs, and we'll have that occasionally. But this is a high-quality pack of dogs that I hunted with the last couple of days.
Well, I don't know about that. They gotta.
Don't be humble about it. I'm trying to. Don't take away my blessing here. I'm trying to brag on you.
Well, no, I appreciate that, but you want to, it helps to have decent dogs. But you know what? That's another thing you kind of learn over the years. It's I guess it doesn't cost any more to feed some decent dogs, as so So you kind of learn what's going to work for you and what doesn't.
Sure.
So, yeah, for me, honestly, Chris, I don't get to hunt nearly as much as I'd like to. And oftentimes in the summertime, especially, I just don't, I'm on the road a lot and just don't get to work dogs nearly as much as I would like to, So mine tend to get set back a little bit sometimes, but for the most part, just like that 5-year-old dog I have, if I was hunting hard, she's, some guys would have the same amount of time in her already on the ground as, by the time a dog's 3 years old, but she does a pretty fair job. The other thing I really like, and I think I really have, and with young dogs especially, is having dogs that will hunt. They have to go hunting, and as you saw up there this weekend, we're not going to be able to go walk dogs around and trying to kick brush piles and stuff like that for them. That's not going to happen. No. We need them. They got to go hunting. There's no way around it. But I think it kind of helps, just like that older female I have. She's got a lot of hunt in her, and I don't think you ever saw her standing around anywhere when we cut her loose.
She would have gone again.
Yeah.
She would have gone hunting again.
Oh, yeah. But
at the end of the day today.
So I think a dog like that is good to start young dogs with. Actually get them out there, get going, and last thing you want to do is not be able to get a dog to go hunting, But, yeah, they really, they got to go.
Yeah, I don't even know how you would – there's no way you could walk a dog where we were. There were some trails and things like that, but – we weren't striking hares on trails. We were striking them back in the stuff that we didn't want to walk through.
Yeah, I know. They gotta go hunt.
Yep.
There's no way around it, really.
And what do you attribute that to? Is it exposure? Is it genetics?
I think number one is probably genetics. It's got to be in them. If they don't have that go desire or whatever, I think that's the main thing, really. I don't think it's something I can just, you can train into a dog just to make them hunt, I think a lot of it is just that desire and that drive, and have that hunt, And she's always had that, but, I think, like you said, genetics. But, I know where her mama was the same way, had an excellent hunt. And her mama's that whole line of dogs had an excellent hunt. And same way with her daddy, And so that's one thing that's very important. Cannot stand a dog that just won't go hunting.
All right, so we'll kind of talk about the elephant in the room here, but what's been your experience with trying to make a dog go hunt? You think I'll put some hunt in that dog? We've always we've heard those guys that stand around and say, oh, whether it's a coonhound, a beagle, a bear dog, I'll make them go hunt. I'll break me off a limb, and they won't want to stand around. What's been your experience with that?
I think beagles maybe be a little bit different. For me, it's natural instinct mostly. Mm-hmm. I just don't think I can put that into him. Not so much as there's different tactics you can use, training tactics or whatever, and to make them go. I do a little bit of squirrel hunting too, or whatever, and I've never been one to be too tough on a dog for anything like that. But I think it just.
My experience is if you start working on a dog, if you've got to start with a dog that's genetically hardwired to want to get out there and hunt. Last podcast we talked about prey drive, being such a high ingredient. It's a key to nose hunting, the treeing instinct, whatever it is, they want to get, they've got that prey drive. And my experience with trying to start with an inferior gene pool and then trying to train the hunt into them is really the only thing you do is teach them to hide.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because
I agree.
They'll fade out there 50 or 75 yards, and you're sitting there, and now we can watch them on a Garmin screen, and it's constantly getting you out there to push, And where we were hunting, you can't do that. You can't push a dog. They've either got to go hunting, or you're going to have a short day around the, cooking hot dogs at the campfire.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
With your dog sitting there beside you, or 50 yards out in the brush hiding from you.
Yeah.
So,
now there's the other thing with that is, that female I have, she'll get out there. She'll range out there pretty quick, and the hunt's pretty hard. But there's also that happy medium. You get back home and getting on cottontail. You do got to have a dog that will handle a little bit. You want him to hunt where you want him to hunt.
Sure.
Where that's a little different back home than it is up north.
Yeah.
Up north where, hey, I can't. I'm. Okay, what are we talking about? 500,000 acres here. Go find one. I can't take you to that place over there where I want you to go.
Yeah.
I just, versus back home, okay, we're hunting this 40-acre field or whatever, but I want you hunting up here in this corner.
Right.
So there's also, that where you can, and she is, she's kind of borderline on that. She'll, if I don't watch it a little bit, I hunt a little differently at home. I try to, get them to, hey, I need you over here,
At home, she'll put you in strange places.
Yeah, well, not if I don't watch it, she will.
Yeah,
absolutely will.
Yep. So how do you work on that? How do you train her to do that?
Basically voice commands, and kind of, kind of walking around with you. They need to listen to you, So.
So even
she can be a little hard. She can be a little hard-headed, But
that's what a lot of people say. Beagles are hard-headed. Beagles are hard to train because they're hard-headed. Mm-hmm. So when you're starting a young beagle, and kind of walk me through the sequence of, you get this beagle pup. It's bred the way you want. It comes from stock that you believe, based on the genetics, is going to be a good hunting dog, a dog that's going to operate at the speed you want. Because at this stage in the game, Allen, you know enough about beagles and genetics and different things. So you get this puppy at home. How do you start that pup?
I'm usually usually I will start him in a starting pen.
Mm-hmm.
I know some guys have starting pens, just for that purpose, and that's usually the first.
I'm
thing
talking baby boot camp before you ever turn them loose with the hopes of they're running a hare.
Perfect. Yeah. No, that is if you have a place where you can let them run around, that is the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
Leave them out as much and socialize with them.
Yeah.
Socialize. Can't stress that enough. That's a big thing. Is socialization right from puppy up.
So,
and
do you do it with treats, hot dogs? I mean, what are you doing? I
don't know so much as just that, but yeah, that's some of it. But you know what? Back in the day, I used to do some, some training stuff, maybe a little bit, dragging hot dogs and stuff like that, But really, I don't do so much of that anymore. Most of the big thing for me is make sure they get socialized a lot. And
when you say socialized, what do you mean by that?
I mean,
because the way I socialize, like I told you that my wife just, we ended up with a pit bull terrier at our house. So my idea of socializing that dog to make sure that he's not biting the mailman and getting me sued is to take him to town and let people pet him and make him realize that people aren't the boogeyman. So when you say socialize with a beagle, what do you mean?
I'm spending as much one-on-one time with him, and put him in the truck, take him places with you.
Yeah,
things like that, absolutely. But when you're at home, let him run around. Especially if you can do that, just get down with him, play with them a little bit. If you got kids and stuff like that at home, let the little kids play with little puppies. Love to be able to do that. But then beyond that, when you're doing other chores and things around the place or whatever. Yeah, let them run with you, and just make them they know their name and this and that. Try to call them and this and that, and sometimes you do with treat stuff too, But just a lot of socialization and make them like you, and because I can tell you, Chris, if you're gonna get a puppy and put him in the pen, you're gonna take him. Your plan is to put him in a starting pen when they're 6, 7, 8 months old. And you leave them penned up until they're that age, good luck with that.
What kind of problems do you see?
You're not going to have you're not going to have a very good connection with that dog for number one, But
so when you take that puppy to the starting pen, okay, you've got this big enclosure. It's been managed for we used to joke around and call it rabbitat. And so are you walking that puppy along with you and trying to kick rabbits up for them to get them rolling?
No, not normally. Normally they stay in there in the starting pen. They maybe a day at a time. Maybe all day long. And you just let them do that naturally. Just leave them out there. Basically nobody around. I'm not walking with them, or the guy I take most of my pups to when I have one. That's what he'll do. He'll put them in there. Just leaves them. He might put them in there in the morning, go to work, and come home at night, and or after work or whatever, and then pick them up, take them home. Just do that for several days. But he'll watch their progress a little bit. He's going to come back and see. And oftentimes, if they've got it in them, they'll stump. Those pens have plenty of rabbits in there, and they're kind of set up for them to bump into and be able to see them. Start out with sight chase stuff, and all that.
Right.
But then, for the most part, I don't like to leave them in there too long. Just long enough to where they actually start using their noses good and start trailing them. That's about all they need. You can overdo it quickly with them and go backwards on that.
How does a beagle move backwards off of being in a
too many sight chases?
Okay.
Too many sight chases, not using their nose.
Mm-hmm.
Once they've associated what that thing is they're after, or whatever, and then after that, you want them to get to use their nose.
Yeah.
Once they start doing that, just kind of monitor that. And the guy I take him to, he's pretty good about, it may be 3 days, call you and say, hey, you need to come get your pup. He's ready to go, or it may be a week, maybe a week and a half,
Yeah.
It just depends on the pup, but yeah. But yeah, socializing with one, and you saw a little bit of my young dog here. He's a little bullheaded, the youngest one. He's
which one? Henry or Homer?
Homer.
Yeah.
He's gonna be a little bit bullheaded or whatever. But
he
did well today. He did, yeah. But now last week there was some times about the closest I could get to him was about 500-600 yards, and he wasn't gonna listen to me. He wasn't coming in. He was just dead set on hunting, and he wasn't coming to that,
How do beagles respond to e-collars?
Pretty good usually.
For recall?
Pretty good usually.
Yeah? Yeah,
and honestly, I've not worked on him very much on that at all. And I don't know. I probably am more hesitant than most when it comes to e-collar stuff, but I would rather work on him at home in an environment where I can actually see him versus where we were when he's 600, 700, 800 yards out there. And
that was a recipe for disaster if you get on the button there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You may not see him again.
Yeah.
500,000 acres of terrain that you can't get through.
Yeah.
And you may never see him again. So
well, when I need him to come, I don't want to. I guess my point is I need him in an environment where I can kind of see what he's doing, and I don't want to see him trying to work a track and then because I'm not going to try to get him in on that,
right.
Especially not a young dog,
right?
I want him. If I need him to come here, I want him to see that he's really doesn't have anything. He's not working anything, and.
When you're starting him out, yeah, I'm the same way with hounds. Start them out in that controlled environment, and then it gets to the point where you polish that hound, and then when you hit that tone button, you want them to stop what they're doing because you're not just toning them because you're tired and you want to go somewhere else. I tone a dog. And when I tone a dog, it's because I need them to come back to me. They're headed towards the I-75 that we're driving down, and I need them to stop what they're doing.
Right here's exit 259. There's
Mayo.
Yep.
The L silent.
No, there's no L. M-I-O.
Oh, that said Milo.
This is home country for me right here, Chris.
I'll be darned.
There's the Hartwick Pines I talked about we'd go to every year. It has the biggest tree in the state of Michigan in Hartwick Pines.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How big is it?
I forget how big it is. It's huge. I remember it's huge.
How long's it been since you've seen it?
Since I was a kid, probably 14, 15, 16, I guess.
Is it still there?
I would.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, I would assume it is.
We already established how old you are. That was a long time ago.
I would think so. Yeah. That time, I forget. We always said it was over 100 years old, so I'm sure another 20, 30 years, I would think it's still standing.
You're shaving years off 20 or 30.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about wolves in the UP real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever worry about your beagles and wolves?
Yes and no. I think you have to be, have some common sense about it, and be aware of it. But not be irresponsible. And I don't think you want to leave. I don't think it's ever going to be a good idea to leave your pack out there after dark and things like that. I tell you, a week ago, that's what I was really worried about. I want to try to get my dogs rounded up before dark.
Yeah.
Well before dark. And just get out. But we have never had a problem with it. And knock on wood. You hear stories, this and that, but and I've never seen one until just this year is the first time I've ever seen one crossing the road, and that was at night, like 9 o'clock at night. It's the only time I've ever seen one. But so for the most part, I think just being have some common sense about it, not being stupid about it. And back home, I actually like to run the dogs at nighttime,
right.
Especially in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a chance, run them at night. And but I just, because of some of the rules they have up there, it's not something I would even.
So you don't let it
intentionally.
You don't let it. It's not something that's on your mind when you pull in, because you hunt a pretty concentrated area that you've hunted for several years. But when you pull up, you're not thinking, man, I hope there aren't any wolves here.
No, it's probably in the back of my mind, somewhere, but it's not like no, I'm not, and maybe I shouldn't say that. It's not like obviously I would be devastated to have any of my dogs get caught by a wolf or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just not, I'm not that worried about it. I think
I've kind of changed.
I'll leave it at that.
That's
very debatable, and it depends on who you talk to. But I know, some of the guys, when they've had issues with wolves up there, has mostly been at nighttime.
Okay.
So maybe being a little irresponsible, leaving them out running all night long, and it's, hey, you're asking for that. That's just, probably a little irresponsible. I just wouldn't do that, because of it. Other than that, outside of that, just never had any issues or anything like that, so, and hope we never do.
Right. And I've never had, we hunt the Swan and we hunt places where there have been wolves and things like that, but I've never experienced a wolf encounter, so I don't know how I would feel if I turned my dogs loose and something happened with a wolf. But I've had dogs hit on the road, and in my mind, there's a hazard every time you turn a dog loose. I wouldn't turn a dog loose on a wolf track or within a quarter mile of fresh wolf tracks any more than I would turn them loose in the median of this interstate.
Exactly.
And people down south deal with gators, alligators, and people in the southwest deal with rattlesnakes, and everybody's got something going on, and it seems like the wolf is a natural villain from childhood. I mean, it's instilled in us either from childhood fairy tales that it's bad, and I'm not a wolf lover at all. I mean, if they did delist a wolf, and if they established wolf season in the UP and I had a wolf tag, I'd smoke it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely, me too.
And but I got a message when I posted on Facebook that we were up here hunting, and somebody wanted me to ask you how you felt about wolves and dealt with wolves up here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, we've just never had any issues at all, and don't really know. I say don't really know anybody. We talk to the locals whenever they mention that, or we talk about that sometimes, just obviously we're not up there day in and day out, but and it kind of depends on who you talk to. It really does,
Yeah.
It's kind of like anything else, I think the chances of some of the guys in the South with gators are far greater than wolves in the UP.
Yep. So
when I say that, I don't want to eat my words. I would hate to see any dogs get involved with wolves up there. But that's just been our experience. And to answer your question, it's always in the back of your mind. But just like you said, back home, anything can happen. You can get a dog hit on the road and things like that. There's always that hazard.
We've had dogs fall in wells. We've had dogs go in caves and be lost, and we've had dogs hit on the road. And there's always some hazard. I think the big thing about wolves is that it's been something that has been forced upon us with no legal remedy up to this point. You know what I mean?
I do.
We turn these wolves loose, and they've got this big, social, emotional attachment to them. The icon right behind. I've seen things about being the icon, like the American eagle is the wolf, and it's just been a deal that we felt like if you want to have wolves, that's okay, but let's manage them. Let's not treat them like they're something special. They're established. Their populations are thriving, just like we would manage a deer population or hunt rabbits. Let's take a few off the landscape. That's the biggest problem that I think most people have, even houndsmen. They have with them. It's like, let's manage them.
Yeah. See, now I don't know really. They have some hound federations up here in Michigan, like the UP Bear Houndsman Association, Michigan Hunting Dog Federation.
Right.
And they're very involved with the whole wolf thing in northern Michigan. So you'd probably have to ask some of those guys, as far as. When you talk about, hound hunting at night, and things like that, I don't know if those guys have, what they run into or what they would say, as far as the nighttime thing, if that plays a part, or if they see more problems hunting hounds at night or not.
I guarantee you that if I lived in the UP, just as an outsider, I have pretty strong emotions about dumping wolves in an area. There's a reason why the wolves were taken off the landscape a long time ago. And if I lived here and I depended on the Hiawatha National Forest to run my hounds, and I'd have some pretty strong emotional ties to that.
So would I, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I would want some answers about what my remedies were for dealing with this stuff. And it's like a couple years ago, Montana was pressured to close or put more restrictions on the amount of time between that a trapper had to check his traps. And there were a lot of outside people from big cities with anti-hunting organizations. Their real agenda is to stop hunting altogether, but the way they do that is to whittle away at different parts of it. So they wanted to tighten up the restrictions on Montana trappers about how long a period of time it was between when they checked their traps. Well, the problem is people in Montana ought to decide that. Mm-hmm. People in the UP ought to decide when too many wolves is too many wolves, mm-hmm. and things like that. But I think there's a lot of people that stick their noses in stuff that they don't have any business sticking their noses in, and it's really up to the people of Michigan. And if I want to come up here and run a beagle or a hound, and then I've got to kind of go along with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, today we talked a little bit about all the bureaucrats and this and that, but I agree 100%. You know, I think the people of Michigan should be more involved in what happens and how they're regulated.
Yeah, absolutely. Not somebody that's never seen the Upper Peninsula.
Exactly, in Detroit or someplace. Yeah,
or even in farther away than that.
Yeah.
Washington D.C. or New York City. You know, that's never seen the UP. So, but so let's get back to beagles. I had something that I was going to ask you about beagles and bring it back around.
Well, I've got a question for you before we cut this off. So tell me what were your expectations? Never been on a hare hunt. Certainly you probably had some. What did you expect? And what did you think about it afterwards, or how were you close?
You know, my expectations, for one thing, I kind of didn't really have a whole lot of expectations. I've never been to the UP. This is the first trip up there, so I was excited about coming and seeing the magical land across the bridge and seeing what that was all about, and that didn't disappoint. I was really...
it's different. The landscape is different.
It is.
Agree, right?
You know, I mean, there's cedar trees. You saw me walking around and looking at different trees, and you know, there's blue spruce and there's longleaf pine, and then you get into some of the cedar varieties that are different from the eastern cedars that I'm used to. You know, so the landscape was a big surprise to me, and there were a lot of hardwood trees or deciduous trees that that were foreign to me. Yeah, there were beech and there was maple, but there's still a couple trees up there that I'm not sure what they were. I know what a birch is, you know, white birch, or I know that sort of tree, but there was a lot of stuff up there that I didn't see or I didn't recognize. As far as the hare hunting goes, you know, I was really not knowing what I was getting into. I thought it would be a lot like a cottontail hunt, and I saw right away that there was a big difference in the way a hare covers ground than there is with a cottontail.
Yeah.
And
the first Wednesday afternoon, the conditions didn't seem to be as good, or the tracking didn't seem to be quite as good. We had it was a little spottier but then today, you know, and I told you after Wednesday, this really wasn't what I call pounding.
Right.
You know? But now today we had a little more pounding than we did yesterday. You know, but I think the conditions were just better. But yesterday it was so windy and everything else. But today the conditions were pretty good and the running was really good. And today was very a good average hunt up there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really liked the fact that I enjoyed hunting with you, because it wasn't like you weren't uptight about what dogs were doing. You weren't up, you know, let's get up there and kill this rabbit. Get up here. Come on. You know, it was pretty laid back and it was relaxing. And it was a lot of times when I bear hunt, if I've got a hound in it, or if I'm coon hunting and I've got a hound in it, then I'm a lot more consumed by what my dogs are doing. And it was kind of nice. It was really nice to unplug from that. I didn't give a crap what your dogs were doing.
Yeah,
that's your problem, not mine. You know? But a lot of times when you go hunting with guys, it's like you don't know what to expect out of because this is the first time we've ever hunted together.
Yeah.
We've known each other for years, but we've never hunted together, and you don't know what to expect from a guy that's got a pack of hounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a giant train wreck, or is it going to be pleasurable? And I can say that it was 100% pleasurable. The just you could feel the excitement in those dogs and see the heart and the drive and everything else. I mean, it was a complete success as far as I'm concerned, coming up and hunting a couple days with you.
Yeah, well, good. I appreciate you coming up here with me and everything, but just starting a fire, take some fire log, get some fires started. That's what I love, about the UP, going up there and just get a little fire going. There's nothing like it this time of the year. You standing around the fire and listen to dogs. Sometimes eventually you want to go shoot one. I guess go do it. But that's not what I go up there to go harvest a bunch of hare. It's never really been my thing. I'm all about the dogs. And I want to try to get some miles on those young dogs, and I do want to get some fur in their mouths. Mm-hmm.
They like it.
Yeah, we're coming home. We got 4 or 5 hare in the bag, that we're going to take home, and hopefully you'll try it.
Yeah.
And but that's not what it's about. It was, I considered definitely a success. Really do.
Yep.
And it was good. I was glad you could go with me. It's good to have you. Good conversations, and
it was fun. It was just a lot of fun, and highly recommend not overlooking the understated beagle, in the hound world. A lot of the crowds I run with, we're talking about, bear dogs and lion dogs and coon dogs and big and exciting and loud, and it was really fun to just see this dynamite in such a small package.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heck, you can pick them up and carry them to the truck.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on to that dog right there. I wasn't worried about carrying a leash. I'd just pick Homer up and carry him back to the.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was neat. I loved it.
No, it's exciting. It's always been something I've always enjoyed, and it's they're a little dynamite in a little package right there, but hey, they there's good beagles and there's beagles that aren't as good, I guess, but I don't have the best beagles by any stretch, but I have a pretty decent pack that can run a rabbit and bring a rabbit, or in this case a hare, back to you, and that's what you want. But,
it was awesome.
Heck yeah.
So before we wrap it up, if somebody's out there and they're listening to this podcast and they're thinking, man, I'd like to try, that sounds like fun. Beagle's something that they're cheaper to feed. Okay, they're not big crazy dogs as far as knocking over furniture and stuff. I think maybe I could fit this into my life. What does a person need to look for when they're out looking for a beagle that they want to hunt with?
I would advise somebody to go to buy a beagle that is started, can run its own rabbit. It's as simple as that. It can run its own rabbit and bring it and circle a rabbit. If you can have a dog that will, number 1, hunt, number 2, be able to circle a rabbit back to you. I don't care, speed and all that doesn't really matter so much. Those are the 2 things you want to look for. You'll find plenty of dogs that will jump in with another dog and run a track with another dog. That's an interesting sign on the back of that truck, huh?
Oh yeah.
That will run with another dog and bring it around and everything. But if it can do it by itself, that is what you want to look for. Sure. One that will go hunt, jump its own rabbit, and bring it around to you. If you can have that, that's the type of dog you want to look for.
Okay, so
go hunt with the dog. Hunt with the dog.
Are those dogs hard to come by?
Not usually. Not for the most part.
And what kind of money would I be looking at to get a dog that simply can do a couple of those things?
Under $1,000. Mm-hmm. I would say probably average $300, $400, $500.
Okay. So that's doable for most. Yeah. That's pretty doable.
Sure.
And then you get that dog, and then you just get out there and you just hunt him.
Yep. There's more deer right there. You're going to be. I would always suggest you're going to be better served to pay $400 or $500 on a dog that can do those two things. We'll go hunting and run a rabbit on its own and circle it. Mm-hmm. Then you are spending $150 or $200 on a puppy, especially if it is your first beagle that you buy.
Yeah.
I would advise paying the $300, $400, $500 for even if it's just a very average dog.
Yeah, and then learn from there.
Exactly.
You know, you get a beagle, and you can get him out there. You can maybe run him with your buddy's beagles, but you're in the hunt now, and you can say, hey,
yep,
you know, I want to improve here, and I want to, you know, maybe look for this in my next dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. It does seem like, from my experience, that beagles have I don't know what it is. We talked about this a little bit, but it seems like beagles are hardwired to run and track, and it comes more naturally to them than a lot of our other hound breeds that we're expecting to do a job. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so for the most part. We talked about that a little bit today when we were sitting there by the fire, but no, I would agree with that for the most part.
They may not all, when you become a connoisseur, a beagle connoisseur, I know there's particular things that you look at. You know, for me, I just look, they're opening, they're driving, they're bringing a rabbit around. That's all good. And I made a few comments, and you're like, I wish they would have done this, or I wish they would have been. You're a connoisseur of beagles, so I think for a guy like me, if I was going to go out and look for a beagle, I'd be pretty happy with a dog that would just bring a rabbit around to the gun.
Yeah. That's, you know what, that's really what you need. You know, one that can do that, and you can find one like that. You should be, you know, that's all you need.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Well, Alan, I appreciate you inviting me up. I'm not kidding. This has been a pleasurable couple days, and it was well worth the time to come up and not only record a podcast, have you on. How many times have you been on the podcast now? You're getting up there and you're getting frequent flyer miles, I think.
I don't know.
Third time?
I think third time, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Chris.
Yep.
No, but really, I appreciate you going. I'm glad you got a chance to go, and it worked out for both of us. So I'm glad you had a good time.
I sure did. Well, we'll sign off the podcast. You know how we sign this thing off? I'll embarrass you a little bit. You remember?
You follow your dog, and I'll follow mine.
Oh man, you almost had it.
Chris, you follow your hound, and I'll follow mine.
There you go. You got it. All right.